Humans and insects do have some things in common: diseases.
Scientists are digging deep to figure out exactly how some insects, especially ants, are creating their very own antibiotics. Take a look.
They're also diverse, so there's somewhere around 15,000 species of ants, and they've been successful on the planet now for somewhere around 150 million years. We think that most of the species have found ways to effectively deal with pathogens, but just like humans, new diseases arise and new colonies can get hit harder than others, and so that's probably their number one threat is disease. Ants live in these large colonies, they have a high interaction rate. It's just like humans in cities, where that's where illness spreads. When someone gets a cold and they sneeze on a train, they can send that cold to hundreds if not thousands of others.
And just like humans, ants need a little help fighting off an infection.
The major goal of our study was to figure out if we can narrow down what species would be the most interesting to look at for future antibiotics. There's more different species of ants that live in Arizona than any other state. So this is an ideal location to continue our studies and look for other species that might produce antibiotic compounds.
First, Dr. Pennick needs to collect some ants to study.
We just walk up and down the streets, and because ants are so common, it's pretty easy to find. These are actually crazy ants, is what they're called. And so we actually study these, and these do produce some antimicrobials. And so what I'll do, I use this device. It's just called an aspirator, and it's essentially a mouth vacuum that you use to suck up ants, and they go through this nozzle into this container, and not in your mouth, thankfully, because we have a screen. So let's see here.
Dr. Pennick then takes the ants back to his lab.
In our research, we have to keep ants alive in the lab, and so we learn a lot about animal husbandry. How do you take care of an ant colony? What's an ant's favorite food? Each species has their sort of own requirements, and you start to notice some of them do get sick. So what we did is we would take ants that we collected outside and we would soak them in alcohol overnight. And then we would take that alcohol off, we would dry that down and resuspend it in basically bacteria food. And then we would add Staphylococcus epidermidis, which is a bacterium that's common, it's on human skin. Probably all of us have it on our skin right now. And so we found ants that produce active compounds that do kill bacteria. And so what we really accomplished here is the first step in finding a new antibiotic. But the questions are now, do they actually work against something that's resistant to our antibiotics that we have now? But what is really fascinating to me is that these ants that sometimes are a nuisance, like fire ants, might actually help save our lives one day. And I think that is a pretty big deal.
One of the challenges with studying antibiotics that ants produce is that ants are really, really small.
And so if you're trying to extract an antibiotic or a medical compound from a plant, it's usually pretty easy. They have big leaves, you can get a lot of material. But for ants, you just don't have a lot to work with.